Hey everyone, it's Mandy Gibbons here, and I'm here with Darran Petty. And I'm going to get you, Darran, if you don't mind, to tell us a little bit about yourself, because once I started seeing some reels on you and some other incredible stuff about your work, and I was like, who is this guy? So I sort of devoured all your all your stuff online. I Googled you, YouTubed you, took a look at your website. Like, you're into so many different things and so talented at so many things, right? Like photography, like as an athlete as well, your podcast show, like there's so many things that you've got going on in your work with kids. And I thought, yeah, we've got to get him on. He's just brilliant. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, and what a beautiful welcome, Mandy. I'm 41 years old. I live in Hobart, Tasmania. I've been living here since 1990. Um, I'm a former professional bodybuilder, turned martial artist, jiu-jitsu, black belt, have my own academy, etc. I'm also a self-taught photographer, videographer. I'm well versed in social media. I've worked with some pretty amazing people with that, Arnold Schwarzenegger being one of them. Traveled the world, done that with videography and photography. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm a social media content creator with my media business. Look, probably a few other things that I'm missing, but we'll get into it. You'll remind me.
That's it. And yeah, and I also, because the Trojan Academy, I was looking at that and I was like, so there's so many different things that we could cover today, but I wanted to start off at least with your backstory, right? Because I had read about that and then obviously listened to some podcasts on that. So I was really interested because this is my podcast is Resilience for Men, right? So, and also sharing a lot of men's own personal journey when it comes to their mental health and personal growth and their own resilience stories. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory if I could.
Yeah, so like I said at the start, I moved to Tasmania in 1990. I was born in 1981. So from when I was born to 1990, moving to Tasmania, I moved around the country with an abusive stepfather and endured domestic violence. My real father left early on and continues to be left. And mum, got with this guy, wanted a new life, turned out to be a shambles. He went to prison, in and out of prison while we were living with him. He took us to Darwin from Victoria, where I was born, to seclude us and isolate us. And then he went to jail at some point and we fled down to Tasmania to live. And I've lived here ever since, back and forth to the mainland. I'm 41, so I've been around, lived multiple places, but always call Hobart and Tasmania home.
Yeah.
And that's where I am now. So then, look, my stepfather died when I was early teens, very early teens, and mum struggled with that ongoingly, and struggled with her own demons, alcoholism and prescription medication, etc. So she kind of lost contact with being a mum for me at that time, and social workers and police said to me, look, you need to leave and you're better off out. And so I left at 14. I haven't been back since. And in that teenage time, it was just, it was chaos for me. I had a lot of good friends in high school and college that kept me going. And that was very important for me because, I'd always try and keep up with the Joneses and pretend that I was okay, but I wasn't. And I was sleeping from couch to couch and mates to mates' house, climbing in and out of windows, etc. during my teen years. And that led on to drugs and alcohol taking hold and taking grip of me. And then getting out of that in the year 2000, sitting down on the couch, drunk and drugged, and on the telly came Arnold Schwarzenegger's Pumping Iron, and then that caught my attention, and then I started bodybuilding from that point. And then through my 20s was just bodybuilding, and then late 20s got into jiu-jitsu, and that's my current form, as well as everything else that I do. That's my backstory.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you find from a personal growth, but also a spiritual level as well, when it comes to being able to find your peace and stay steady emotionally, that martial arts has been like incredible for you in that area?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, martial arts, specifically Brazilian Jiu Jitsu,
Yeah,
of which I'm a black belt in, and I've been training for 14 years.
yeah,
Um, Even during COVID, we didn't stop. We kind of boarded up the windows and kept going. So I haven't particularly had more than, I haven't had a string of days or weeks off in 14 years. And simply because it has been a rock for me, it has been a stabilization. I've been all over the place. I've been living, living without a home, broke, bankrupt. I've been, I've lived a pretty raw life, and I've also got criminal convictions and in drugs, and that was with trafficking steroids through the bodybuilding scene, etc. No violence charges, etc. But yeah, look, jiu-jitsu has been that for me. That 14 years of physical activity, 3 or 4 nights a week, sometimes 7 days a week, 3 times a day. That has certainly been something that has anchored me to the ground.
yeah. That's
Mm.
awesome. I find that a lot, especially in jiu-jitsu, like when I speak with people, like I did got to do a weekend of kinetic fighting with Paul Kale
Mm.
a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and that was really, really cool. And that sort of got me interested in that, because I'd been following him, and I was like, wow, I really like this, and it was something that I could really physically throw myself into, and everyone pretty much that was in there was at that training. I was the only greenie when it came to, I had no martial arts experience whatsoever. Everyone else in there was sort of like fairly further up and very experienced with jiu-jitsu, and I was like, oh wow. So I was a bit like a turtle on my back with my legs in the air getting flung
Right.
around. That I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so, but that's one thing that I felt this really strong presence in the people that were doing that. That's what made, that's why I wanted to ask you that. And do you find that with kids as well, like, because I'm seeing that you're, working with children, and that would be so helpful for them, especially with bullying and just, their confidence and.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I've been working with children now since probably 2000, 2001. I was a child carer
Yeah.
with a place in Tasmania called Lady Gowrie, and I was with them for working with 3 to 5 year olds from 2000, I think, to 2007-ish, and then I went into disability support work after that for 3 or 4 years, and then became a personal trainer, etc. Look, I've brought all that with me into the Trojan Academy kids team training, into the kids classes. All of that work that I did with the kids back then certainly plays a part in what I do now. And what I do now is, yes, we have children that compete in tournaments and etc. However, my main aim with the 30 to 40 children on the mat at only one night is to instill their not instill, but bolster their self-confidence and give them a sense of themselves. So I allow my children a lot to speak up and speak out. I'm always asking them to be involved and take over my role and demonstrate, and at the start of every class, to be specific, I always line them up and I ask them all, does anyone have any injuries today? And what they think I mean by that is everyone okay to train? But I know they are, because they're sitting there and kids are fine generally. But it gives them a chance to put their hand up and just say some things. And generally, they talk about this, that, and the other. Sometimes they're injuries as well. And sometimes they just talk about, I've got a sore fingernail. But that gives them just a chance to speak up and out in front of a big group to someone who's intimidating like myself. And then, I allow my kids to yell and scream. I give them opportunities to, and I say, when you're finished, just scream out that you're finished, and come and give me high five and run at me and be involved and have physical contact with a big scary guy. And it's served them well over the years. I've seen a lot of children come through and change dramatically from the start to, whatever stage they're up to. A lot of kids come in quiet, and a lot of kids end up, very boisterous and confident.
I love that so much. And you know, with the, even like the social media reels that I've seen of you, there's a lot of fun there. You can, well, one, you can tell that you genuinely care, like that shines through big time in your social media, but also like you can tell that they're having a lot of fun in that as well.
For sure. It's
Yeah,
martial arts, in my opinion, must be fun. It can't
yeah,
be about discipline. Discipline comes with respect. And if you're having to fight for discipline in your class, then you don't have the respect of your students. The discipline will come by just their respecting your voice and your manner. And I certainly do. I connect with the children on a one-to-one level. I connect with them as a group. I allow them to be who they are on the mat. If they're energetic, they can be energetic. You know, I try and keep lids on certain behaviors, but if they're quiet, I allow them to be quiet. I don't force them to speak up. I don't force them to be the energetic people to slow down. They can just be at their own pace. But I do have a lot of good coaches that help me as well, and that makes my life a lot easier. It allows me to be the conductor of what I do. But it is about fun. Martial arts should be about fun. And as soon as martial arts is about fighting or defending yourself, it becomes kind of you know, the more you talk about self-defense and the nitty-gritties of what that actually is, the nitty-gritty, sorry, of what that actually involves, it can come across quite negative. So I try and just mask all that with fun and games and connectivity, you know, rather than say, look, you know, if someone holds you down by the throat and punches you in the face, this is what you do. I don't focus solely on that. I focus more on the fun aspects of it. And that all just gets rolled in and they get that without having to focus on it.
yeah, and it's a nice way to socialize, right? In a nice, positive environment as well.
Absolutely. And I have this thing where before the session, a lot of martial arts schools don't allow the kids onto the mat, but my kids rule the mat. It's their mat. So they're on the mat and they're throwing bowls, soft balls and things around. They're running around, they're on the ground, they're up. And I monitor that. However, I allow them to, I really like the fact that the kids are okay in chaos. You know, if a child sees our busy mat before a class, so 10 or 15 minutes before the class, kids just running around everywhere, yelling, screaming, laughing, fun, whatever. And if the kid doesn't want to hop on the mat, they don't have to. However, I'm a big believer that kids need to experience some chaos and be comfortable in it rather than tone everything down. So I have a lot of loud music playing. As soon as I enter the building, at about 15 minutes before a class will start, I'll turn the music on really loud, 80s music. It's very friendly, and the kids just enter the mat and do their thing. Some just sit, some run, some jump, whatever. And then when I enter the mat at 5:30 on the dot, then I turn the music completely off, and I've got their attention. So that's another tool that I use to garner their attention. However, I do allow them to be themselves. I think it's a very important aspect for any coach or even maybe a parent to think about, is to allow your child to be who they are rather than trying to mold them into what you want them to be. Because everyone's different. And some kids are always energetic, some are not so energetic, some are half and half, and you've got to try and move yourself into those categories rather than move them into the categories that you want them to be in.
Yeah, and I like
In
what
my
you said
opinion.
about the chaos as well, because I think, you know, where, I mean, I even know the way that I was brought up and so forth. You know, I see a lot of people trying to shelter each other from chaos, and I understand that, but I think it's also good that we know how to deal with that as well at the same time, and being able to, you know, have those tools when you're so young is just incredible.
It really is. And once they get to school and they enter a recess where there are no rules, you know, the classroom is restricted, and then they enter the recess or lunch periods where there is a lot more chaos, then my Trojan Academy kids and anyone that trains the kids like this are well versed in what occurs, you know, yelling, screaming, groups of people, physical touch, bumping and pushing and shoving. Not that I'm saying that shoving each other over. I'm just saying that, you know,
Yeah.
being around children and being around children being around chaos and friendly, fun chaos is, I think should be promoted. And the children just adapt to it. You know, sometimes I have to enter the mat and say, listen, I have one rule at the academy, and that is no screaming. No squealing. I say to them, what's the number one rule? And they say, no squealing. And I get someone to come out and I get one person to squeal, like really high pitch. And I say, you see what I mean? That's squealing. What is it? It's ultra. And they say, annoying. And I say, no squealing, you know, because it's just high pitch. But so I do have those things that I will not tolerate. However, if they do occur, I just stop what I'm doing and I explain everything really slowly. So I don't ever exclude a child. I'll never ever exclude a child. I'll just always talk to the group about these specific behaviors, you know, and that allows everyone just to be really bored by me. Really, the children won't tend to misbehave because then I'll stop everything and just talk really slowly about squealing. And that deters them, you know. So these little things that I've got in place so that the children have the best time possible, you know, while they're there.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sitting here laughing because I'm just picturing it, right?
Yeah, and we video a lot of it, you know. But however, we don't video all of it. But maybe I should. Maybe I should video an entire class about how I do and run things, because I think it is unique. And because of my childcare background, I think that it is. People can learn from how I do what I do, and I've been doing it a long time successfully. 14 years, turning 15 years in 2023. 15 years doing this with kids, you know, and I've seen kids literally grow up. I've spent half, you know, some kids' lives as their coach. So
yeah,
I've got something to offer there. Maybe you've jogged me into something else that I should start doing.
I was, you know, because I'm thinking to myself, like from, you know, your own life experience, especially when you're young, to go into that field, you know, like to feel confident even going into that field in the first place after what you went through, and to do that, you know, for so many years and from a younger age, that's super cool.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I've been talking a lot about this lately, and I did an interview with the ABC last week somewhere there, and I spoke on a similar thing where people live their life as a young person and carry on living that way, and mirror how they grew up as to who they are. And if that was the way for me, I'd be a very violent individual. I'd perhaps be in prison and all that type of thing, or in and out of it. Now, having said that, I have changed the trajectory of my life, and I decided to do that at a very young age. It was touch and go with alcohol and drugs as a teenager, but when I sort of set my feet on the ground with lifting weights and having regimen in my life, I was okay. And that was when I decided to not be that way. You know, I wasn't born into violence. It was introduced to me at about 5 or 6 years old. So I did have that. That first initial upbringing was peaceful. So I did have that. I guess there's many books and literature written on this type of thing, but the first 7 years of your life is when you're informative, is when you're taking on board things. I think there's a study on that somewhere around. And with that notion, I'll run with it. With that notion, then perhaps I was already okay. You know, I was a very meek and mild young boy. If my mum hurt herself or tripped up or banged her elbow, I'd cry and she'd cry and I'd be a mama's boy. And then I just turned into this, you know, different person as a teenager, just because what I went through that period of time with my violent stepfather. And we're talking about ultra violence, you know, we're talking about bloodshed, we're talking about weapons and fighting and carnage during that period of time, which I didn't ask for. It just sort of landed in my life. So I guess I have that to look back and think. That's why I guess I defaulted back to what I am now. I still do struggle. I struggle with things in life. I find it very hard to listen to people's problems when they're not problems. And you know, some people call that lack of empathy. But I disagree. I have a lot of empathy for everyone. However, the amount of empathy that I have for people can differ. You know, people that are going through things that are hard, I have a lot of empathy for that, and I help a lot of people, and I have a lot of causes. However, people, I struggle. Not people. I'm not putting this on anyone, but me myself. I find it difficult sometimes to listen to people say, "Oh, well, you know, this, that, or the other," and I think, well, that's not a problem whatsoever. You should just suck that up and move forward, or not even suck it up, but not worry about it. You know, a lot of people, I think, sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. I think too, it's, it sounds like you've spent a lot of time problem solving, right? And once you sort of get into um, that energy of, and that mindset, but more just like making a decision, right? That's what you're going to do. You're going to be, create solutions and open doors and opportunities for yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you, right? Once you make that decision and you start making that a regular part of your life, it kind of becomes your default. So
It's a funny thing that when you say, um, no one's going to do it for you, and no one ever has done it for me. I mean, I've had friends and colleagues that have helped me along the way, but at the end of the day, I had to drag myself out of that life, especially as a teenager. And then, I was bankrupt at 21 because of the way I lived my teenage years. I got loans and I had a job, or sort of like I was a child carer, but I was rocking up sort of drunk most of the time and etc. But in that time, I got loans, I got a job, I got a loan, got another loan, got another loan. And I was like $30,000 in debt because I spent that loan money on alcohol. Now, then I declared bankrupt at 21. And no one told me not to. My mum or dad didn't have any say whatsoever on that, and didn't help me in any way, nor did any of my family. I just declared bankrupt, and there I was at 21. So with me, it's this thing where people often think I can't do something. It's totally a false narrative that if you're willing to reach out and turn door handles, like metaphorical door handles, and just push these doors open or open the windows, reach out and get it done. And if the door doesn't budge, kick it down. And if the window doesn't budge, break it open and get through there. Do whatever it takes. And it takes a lot of sacrifice. I've had to sacrifice so much in my life to get where I am and get what I've got. And I think that's very important. And we hear a lot of these buzzwords these days because of social media, Mandy, as I'm sure you can attest to, that you've heard or that we even say ourselves. But it really is true when I say you have to sacrifice, and you have to go hungry. You have to go without sleep. You have to go without fine things. You have to go. I've got a couch in my studio here to my right, and every time I look at it, not every time, but sometimes I look at it and I think I've slept on couches most of my life. I've slept on mates' floors, and because I haven't been able to rent. No one would rent me anything because of bankruptcy, etc. So I've had to sort of live this lifestyle, and this is where I guess that sometimes I lack empathy for people with small problems. But generally, I think that people are very, very strong out there. You have to be these days, especially with what we've just recently been through. Not that I want to go into that. For the last 3 or 4 years, everyone's had to be resilient. Every single person, because you've had to take a really hard look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it's been a time where the strong have survived, and people that certainly people that sweat small stuff. The COVID-19 pandemic really affected a lot of people negatively. However, I just kept going. I didn't stop. Nothing. I didn't stop anything. I tripled things. As a matter of fact, I tripled my work ethic during that time.
yeah, and I think too, because people, sort of tend to have a lot of pride, or they are just afraid to ask for help, right? Because I think and it's not even always about asking for help. It's just about being curious and asking. Because if you don't, I've got a thing up there, you can probably can't see it. It's like ask big, receive big, love big, all of these. Because I truly believe that we can be afraid to ask for things, and because people feel guilty about asking. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to ask for help. Couple of years, it was January 2020, I experienced brain and nervous system trauma. So I had to rewire my body and mind to walk and talk properly again and things like that. And I was so used to never asking for help. And so, I was just like, I was always one of these people who helped a lot of people, but never asked for help myself, right? And then all of a sudden I had to ask for help, and I was like, I don't like this. But I had no option. Well, I did have a choice. I could have sat there and victim, or I could have, or asked for help. And it was so amazing how many people just couldn't wait to help. I was like, wow, this is super bloody cool. Like, I like, you know, I was so impressed by people's kindness and compassion but it was also because I was very curious as well, because I wanted to step forward. I wanted to create momentum no matter what was going on. I was like, okay, how do I get through this? These are all the things that I'm going to have to do. If I want to do those things, I'm going to have to ask for help, and I'm going to have to ask lots of questions to get to that place. And I think we need to be a little bit kinder to ourselves as well, and not be so harsh on ourselves when we want to ask for help or we want to take those big steps, because it's all of us have like beginning steps and stages, right, before we become great at something.
Yeah, I agree. It's just on what you've been saying in asking for help. I'm an expert at asking for help because I've had to ask for help my entire life.
Yeah.
And I'm at a stage now, it took me 38 or 9 years to be in a position where I no longer have to ask for help. But what I mean is I spent 38, 39 years asking for help across the board in many aspects of my life. I'm in a position now to help people, which is great, but I still ask people for favors and things, and I'm willing to, you know, return all these favors as well. I've got tattoos on my arms here, and it says "Para todos, nada para nosotros," and that means everything for everybody, nothing for ourselves, and that just means give. So if you give, you will receive, and I believe in that. I strongly believe in that. I've done so many things in my life where I've helped causes or I've done things for free. I've worked for free. I've traveled on other people's time and they've wanted me to do things for them. And I've done thousands and thousands of hours of that. And I've given so much and given, like with blood, sweat and tears, that now I believe that things are coming back to me. You know, if you give, then you will receive. And I'm certainly in that position now in my life that I receive a lot of different things now that I've always sort of wanted. And now it's funny that I no longer really need most of that stuff that's been offered to me. And I turn a lot of it back. But it's funny. If you seriously spend your life in service of giving, then it will definitely at some point turn around and reciprocate to you. So that's my advice if anyone's listening in that respect, to get something from this podcast. I just think that would be my one of my key points to give.
Yeah, and you did that, you know, because, you know, I know I've known lots of people over the years too that have gone through challenges, that have had charges against them for different things and so forth, and that's kind of what really rattled them, like feeling like people would reject them more, you know, and so forth. But that's always an opportunity to turn things around for yourself, right? And you're
Totally.
proof of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm living proof of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But to that point, you know, I've had, I'm a convicted drug trafficker. You can search it up and it's there. I haven't been able to travel to America. The charge was 12 years ago, so I can now start living my life in the past 2 years. Have the COVID came, etc. I'd like to go to LA and New York and do the whole America thing and travel the world. But there is a pathway back. There always, let me rephrase that. There are pathways back. I was doing a talk at a school recently, and one of the children said to me, one of the youth there said, "You're right, Darran, there is always a pathway back. There always is a way back with all these things that we go through." And I said, well, not always. You can't come back from life in prison or long-term prison. It's difficult to come back from long-term prison with recidivism and being, what's the word when you're in jail for a long time, you become, lost the word in my mind.
You mean
my
like
tongue.
Emotionally incarcerated?
Yeah, so you become part of the system. And the other thing I said to them, to this one youth, was you can't come back from death. So if you're living your life in a way that you could die, which is drugs, extreme drug use, violence, gangs, and craziness like that, then if you die, you're not coming back from anything. And it sort of opened his eyes, and he thought, yeah, you're right. Because I sometimes think we live in an illusion that everything's going to be okay, or that no matter what, I'll be fine. It's not always the case. So you do have to just keep in mind how close to that edge you are playing in your life. And I've had to look at myself very, very, very hard, especially when I'm sitting in a police station and the police inform me that it's Operation Petty, because I apologise for taking their Friday night up. I said, sorry guys, I'm a bit embarrassed. Here we are, this, that, and the other. They said, well, it's Operation Petty. We've been doing this for months. And off I go to Supreme Court. So sitting in Supreme Court is like sitting on a plane in turbulence. You think, oh, if I survive this, I'm going to do this thing and do that thing, whatever. But when you're in Supreme Court with a judicial guard next to you and with handcuffs on, taking you to prison in the next 5 minutes, then certainly you have to sit and think or rethink where you're at. And that is a beautiful opportunity that some take and some don't. I certainly took it. And since 2011, I haven't trafficked anything. I've had traffic fines where I've, sped or parking tickets and things like that. But no, never that things. But I just think some people get through it and some people don't. But it's not always easy either to get out of that lifestyle. It's not always easy to break the mold of our lives. I've destroyed the mold of my life and moved forward and in and out of like struggles, but never gone back to that specific life of drugs and alcohol abuse. I'm in a time in my life now where I can enjoy alcohol, and I don't need drugs. I can just have a few drinks at a fancy restaurant, which I appreciate. And all these things that I do in my life now, where it's an expensive restaurant or it's a thing that I opt into, like travel and things like that, I appreciate that stuff very much through what I've been through. Every moment and every second that I spend in this newfound life of mine, or worked for, not found, but worked for, I appreciate it. I'm very appreciative and grateful. I'm grateful every single day that I wake up. Just through what I've survived, I guess,
Yeah, well, it does make you grateful, but I suppose you've had to have gratefulness along the way as well, right? Because if you don't have that, it's a bit hard to move forward.
Well, I think a lot of people experience depression.
Yes, of course.
Where with gratefulness, waking up and being depressed about your life, I think it's important to take itinerary of what you've actually got going on.
Yeah.
Some people really are depressed, and it's a chemical imbalance, and they struggle to fight through that. And I'm not going to talk to that. I'm not an expert in any shape way.
Yeah.
However, people outside of clinical depression, that seem to be just living a negative life, well, I would suggest that wake up every single day and be absolutely grateful. Again, we're talking about catchphrases, Instagram quotes. We're talking about this type of thing. But the reason they're there is because they're true. And it's not always easy to stomach reading a quote that says, be grateful for every moment of your life when you've got bills and life and things in the way. However, if people like me, it's pretty easy because I'm happy if I've got a bed. I'm actually happy if I don't have a bed, the couch or the floor, or sleep in a car, whatever. I'm happy if I've got food and water and shelter. So that's, and I think not everyone's been through a hard life, and there's plenty of people been through harder lives than me, much. So I think we've all got a different way of being grateful, but I think it's an important key to waking up every day and not being in a depressing state is to be grateful. I think that's a real key, and so common, but so true.
Yeah, and finding what works for you, right? Because I mean, years ago, I battled, I was sort of dancing with suicide. Like I had gone through marriage breakup, both my rescue dogs had passed away. I had and quite a few other things had happened all in a period of like 12 weeks. And I thought I had my shit together and I'd be right. And then all of a sudden I realized I just didn't. And I went downhill pretty quick and was too proud to ask for help at the time until I did ask for help. But, like even for myself, people were saying at the time, just put affirmations on the mirror, you know, and all of it, and I did, but it didn't work because I actually didn't believe it. So for me, gratefulness did help, and there was, you know, other things that I found. I think it's important that you kind of like, when you're in that, you may not feel like looking for solutions because you're just done, you know, but at those times when you are in those darker places, to be able to find that glimmer of hope, right, you know, is really important. And I know for myself, affirmations didn't always work back then. They're cool now, but you know, at the time it was like, what can I find? And it was very much like, I was grateful to sleep in a bed. I was grateful that I was still alive. I was grateful that I could hear the birds outside, that I could sit in the sun, and that other people that had gone through the mental health issues that I was going through at the time hadn't made it through, so they don't get that chance, you know. And it was all these kind of things that I would like say to myself. And so I think there's always opportunity to find ways to be grateful, even when you're struggling, if you can try and find that within yourself.
I'll just pose this to you. When you say find a glimmer of hope, find this, and find things, I'll pose this.
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer that we should create hope and create things that draw us to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
And that when I say that, it's like, I think of early Indigenous people creating fire with sticks.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have a lighter, they don't have a apparatus to create flame, so they're literally sitting there and rubbing sticks together to create flame. And sometimes, most of the time, for me certainly, I've had to sit for hours, days, weeks, months, years, and rub sticks together and try and get some smoke, just to try and get some a spark and then a flame. And now certainly I've created a fire. However, you know, it's been me having to create, and not even having to, I'm breaking down a lot of what I'm saying, not having to create, but wanting to create and being available to create, rather than go and get a regular job or go and work in the mines, which I could have done easily as a criminal, and done 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and made whatever money a week or month, whatever. I've stuck to my guns, and I've stuck to who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm proud of that. And I think that people should certainly if you're a creative person, certainly if you've been through a tough time, or certainly if you do have aspirations to being something, and not what I do, but anything, then take that time, take those seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years, just really toiling away at what you're trying to achieve. And it is the journey. It's not always the destination. The journey of what I've done, you know, I taught myself how to use video cameras. I taught myself how to use editing software. I've taught myself basically most of what I know about jiu-jitsu. Of course, I have a coach, and he coaches me, and we do that via proxy. He's in Melbourne, and we do it that way. But it's up to me to pursue and to continue that learning. You know, everything that I do is self-taught. I've never been to a course or a uni or a TAFE to learn the things I do. So I think that people, if they get anything from this, you know, a couple of key points, but I would take away to really put into your mind to move forward would be to, whatever it is that you're doing, toil at it. You know, create calluses and shed some blood and some tears and sweat over it. You know, it's been years and years and years of me being on camera or being behind the camera or training in martial arts to now live the way I live. And to me, I'm so successful. For me, I'm utterly successful, and maybe it's all over for me only because I say this, like where I've come from, like this is a pinnacle of pinnacles for me. to even be in a position where someone would even be mindful to ask me to be on their podcast like yourself, Mandy, is a huge honor for me, that I can have some wisdom to pass on, or even to coach kids. You know, it's a huge deal for me. I should be in prison, or I should be dead, or I should be very, very sick, or I should not be in the position I'm in, but I've earned this, and I've fought for this, and here I am, and I'm proud of it. And I think if
Yeah.
people can get anything, just toil, just never give up. And I say, I have a quote where I use a lot in my posts. It's a hashtag. I just say, never ever ever never ever give up. Not never give up, but never ever give up, because I really do mean it. Like, no way, like never ever, you know.
You are so bang on there about that, the creation versus the find. Because when I think about, even when I was going through that myself, I was creating, I guess I was finding within myself, but I was creating. And that totally absolutely makes sense. And because my purpose was so strong, I couldn't quit on that. I didn't want to quit on myself, and I knew what my purpose was. And so even in the darkest times when I just I had enough, there was something pulling me, you know, and then when I would find those moments where I felt that hope, I would do something. So that then what that would do, it would obligate me then to know that next week I've organized this for myself. So I've got to keep going. And I feel all these experiences that, you know, that we have in our lives, and I, you know, see everything that you've been through. It's like you have all this awesome wisdom now, right? And all these things that do take place in our lives, we do get to have the opportunity to share those with others in our own specific way, whether it's via podcast, the kids that you're helping, and all the other awesome things that you are doing. Like it's so good. And when it's so rewarding doing that, like the gratification that you get from that, the life experience that you get from that, the resilience lessons, I suppose, also that you get from that. You've got to handle rejection and so many other things. And the personal growth from having to face yourself when you're going through those challenges too, right?
I agree. The resilience. Look, I'm ultra resilient, you know, and many people have tried to break me over the years, circumstantially or directly, and I find myself unbreakable. You know, not one person can even get close to shaking who I am because of what I've created, you know, my life to be. Because I've built my life with brick by brick, and I see myself now sitting on some sort of structure. Not like I'm not saying that I'm in a castle or anything like that. I'm a king or anything rubbish like that. But I've certainly built a solid structure that I sit on that can't be shaken, because every single brick that's gone to build my structure is, and I've said it many, many times in this podcast for some reason, is the bricks are made up of blood, sweat and tears. And, you know, they're set and they can't be shaken. And I guess it all comes back to, you know, create your life and back yourself and ask for help. I think it's a really nice key that you brought up earlier, that asking for help is not a bad thing. I'm very lucky in the sense that the luck that I have in my life is that I did come from nothing, and I've had to ask for everything, you know. And it's a very good takeaway for people that are listening. That's not a bad thing, and that all that you can experience, the only negative that comes from it is no. And then keep moving forward, no matter what. Never ever give up. That's my message.
Yeah. And when it comes to like resilience itself, is there something in particular, like maybe just like in more recent years, that sort of impacted you in a way that you sort of just gone, it's like this self-awareness of like, holy shit, I really am unbreakable.
Ah, it's interesting. I don't think I've thought it in that way, but I love the question, and give me a moment to work through it. And look, just people believing in me, I guess. Just people,
Yeah.
the offerings that I get, the people reaching out to me, and like yourself, Mandy, and anyone, like, gee whiz, like, I get reached out to a lot, and like I said earlier, I've always wanted that. Always wanted people not to have to ask for things anymore, in terms of like, to be specific, like um, business ventures or sponsorships, or to fill the gaps. I'd wanted to be reached too, and that is certainly occurring now. And I just think to myself, and like I said, I'm just working through this thought process now because I love the question. Um, it's that really sets in stone to me that I have made it through the darkest times in my life, and the rest of my life will be the best of my life. Yeah, I like that question. It's yeah, and certain things like people maybe reaching to try and defeat me in some way. I have my some personal family issues that people are trying to undermine my integrity, etc. But they, they can try, but at the end of the day, not only am I in my mind successful and have made it through my tough times, that I'm also a good person, and I believe in myself. I back myself, no matter what. I can't be shaken or broken. Been through it all, seen it all, done it all, and now it's time to continue the creation of my life rather than the survival of it. That's
Yeah, I
what I
like
would.
that.
That's how I would frame that. Mm.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very
Mm.
cool. That's very cool. And I'm just looking at the time, and we don't have too much time left.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so um, there is a couple more questions, but before we do, I do want to ask,
Mm.
like, where can people like reach out to you? Like if they,
Yeah,
I mean, I'll include links obviously at the, with
sure.
the podcast show, but is there anything in particular at the moment that you're particularly passionate about, that you would love to get the word out about, that you've got coming up?
Yeah, sure. So, with that specific question, is there anything I want to get the word out about? It's
Yeah,
I speak a lot at schools, so if anyone wants
yeah,
to reach out to connect with me in regards to me talking at a school, wherever it is, we can always work things out. I'm only a plane ride away, and I travel a lot. But darranpetty.com, just hit the link there and hit my website, and you'll get a drop box there to contact me, and I'll answer all emails that come through darranpetty.com. I do get a lot of social media connectivity, and that's hard to keep up with. However, if you do connect with me through Instagram or my Facebook page, then you're likely to grab me there. But certainly darranpetty.com, that's where the hub is. That's where I guess that I'm most available. And like I said, if there's anything at the moment that I'm trying to pursue or do, it is speaking. And it is not only about my story, but what I've got to offer and what I've been through that could help others, and I do think it can, especially kids that are going through tough times and are struggling. I have a knack of getting through to youth and people like that. Yeah.
yeah. And sharing your funny videos. Those reels are hilarious with the dad jokes.
It's funny, we've been doing that for years.
Yeah,
The young lady that I do it with, I've been training her sisters, who are now teenagers, since they were little, since they were her age. And we've been doing dad jokes for many, many years. And my
yeah,
producer, Derek, that you caught earlier, who's still with us, by the way, monitoring this whole thing, he filmed one of them, and we were like, oh, okay, that's a video like any other. we popped it up, and now that first particular dad joke that we did, I forget what it was now, but it's on Facebook. It's 1.6 million views on Facebook, and TikTok's like 5.4 million views. So the addition there is probably 7 something million views, and then Instagram, which I have a love-hate relationship with. It's just hard to navigate and hard to sort of get traction on. Has its own views as well. That video went around to Reddit, and Reddit gave it millions of comments and views and things, and it's just a funny little thing, you know, and we've continued with it. And after each training session, the young lady that I do the dad jokes with, she'll approach me, or the dad will give a hand up like, yeah, she wants to do another one. And Derek will be filming the Trojan Kids Academy classes, and just pop over and just quickly film it. You know, very candidly. We don't really set up a stage or anything. I hold it. I normally have a microphone on my neck when I'm doing talk to cameras and things, but I just hold it in my hand, and she talks, I talk, she talks, I talk. I stand up, she walks, she goes home. That's how it's been, and they're just going viral around, literally around the world. So, and I think that's simply because they're very positive, and they're not contrived, and they're not set up. You know, and it's not really about the joke, and it's not at all about me. I'm the facilitator of it, and I'm the man in the equation. I'm the coach in the equation. I'm the guy in the equation. I'm the dad figure in the equation. Derek is the camera person in the equation. It's all about her laugh and her joy, you know.
Yes.
And we're not laughing at her. We're laughing literally with the young lady. I think that's the importance of that. And it's nice to see that it's circulating because it's infectious. You know, not like COVID-19 infectious. It's nice to see something positive being infectious, you know, and maybe we all need a vaccine from, no, kidding. You know, it is what it is. It's a funny thing. Like, some things go viral and you think, oh, damn, why did that go viral? It's horrible, or it's yuck, or it's stupid, or it's dumb, you know, and there's plenty of that out there. But it's nice to see something like this go viral and around the world. And a lot of people think this should be a comedian. So one day we'll see.
Yeah, it's what it would come under the classification of like wholesome, right? It's nice, and there is a lack of that these days with that type of like feel good. Just it's the
innocence.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. That's it. And also, congratulations! Did I see that you got engaged?
Yes, thank you.
Isn't it? Yes. Yay!
It only took me 41 years, but here I am.
That's
finally did it, and I'm very proud and honored. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been fantastic having you on, and yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to bits to be able to like raise awareness for what you're doing, and to share your journey with my audience as well. So yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you.
Perfect, Mandy. Thanks very much for having me.
No worries. Awesome. Okay. It's good to have you on, everybody. And thank you, Darran, and thank you, Derek, as well, in the background there.
That's all good.
Derek?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Derek's in the house. It's at the Derek Hickman, and he's my producer, Mandy, and he runs all of this. Pretty much I just sit here, and at the Derek Hickman is all around. You should see the equipment that he's got on the go at the moment. It is out of control.
I can imagine.
He's a wizard.
Awesome.
You're going to get yourself an at the Derek Hickman.
I will one day. Soon.
You will.
I will. Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, big hugs to both of you. I really value your time, and yeah, and have a fantastic day. And thanks everyone for coming on today. It's been fantastic. Okay, big hugs. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.